In the past year, I have earned over $10,000 selling gaming PCs online, and I've also helped teach tons of people how to start their very own PC flipping business. But it just occurred to me that I have never made a video on how to build your first PC flip. So let's build your first PC flip. So there's actually a couple different ways that we could go about this. The first direction that we could take is we could be looking for a completed build, somebody on Facebook Marketplace selling their PC for a low amount of money. We could go ahead and purchase that computer, upgrade it, make it look more modern, and then go ahead and relist it for a profit. Another way that we could go about this is we could be buying all brand new hardware and we could try our hand at selling brand new computers. Now, I have not tried that on this channel yet, but I am going to soon. So if that is something that does interest you, go ahead and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss when that video goes live. Now, the method that we are gonna be using today is we are going to be hunting for deals on specific hardware to decrease the total cost of the build. And then once we go to sell that computer, we can maximize the amount of money we make. Now, as far as the price range is concerned for your very first PC flip, it really all comes down to how much money you are willing to invest into this. I have built gaming systems for as low as $200 and I have spent as much as $900 on a PC flip. So it all depends on how much you're willing to invest and what kind of deals you can find in your area. Now, since we are focusing on hardware for today's PC flip, I'm looking for deals on the motherboard, the CPU, and the graphics card. And the reason that I'm looking for deals on those three specific items is that I know if I can find really good deals on those items, I'm pretty much guaranteed to make money when we go to sell this system. Now, for today's flip, we're gonna go a little bit pricier and we're gonna spend around $800 on this flip, but the goal is to try and sell this system for $1,100. And if we're gonna try and make $300 profit off of one single computer, it needs to perform absolutely amazingly and it needs to look spectacular. So let's go over the hardware that we're gonna be using in today's build. So starting off with a brand new item, we have the beautiful case that all of our wonderful hardware will be going inside of. Now, you do not always need to buy a brand new case for a PC flip. If you're patient enough, you can usually find somebody selling a very cheap PC case on places like Facebook Marketplace. Now, because today's build is very pricey in comparison to a lot of other flips, I wanted to make sure that we had a brand new case so that we can maximize the amount of attention that our listing will get once we go ahead and post this computer for sale. Now, I chose to go with this fish tank style case by Amundsen because the design is really popular. Now, this is not what I would consider the most budget-friendly case, but it is a dual chamber case, meaning that there is a second chamber in the back to tuck away cables and your power supply. And this case also allows us to not have to worry about any fans, as it does come with 9 included ARGB fans. And assuming you have been watching me for a while, if I have not taught you anything else, please hear me now. It doesn't matter if you love RGB or you loathe it entirely. RGB will help you sell computers and make more money. Now, just because your case comes with 9 fans, do not assume that those fans are installed correctly. This case, for example, has the bottom and the back fans set to exhaust and the top fans set to intake. And that is for sure not the most efficient way to exhaust hot air from a PC, as hot air does rise. So I will be flipping all of the fans in this case so that the bottom and the back are set to intake and the top fans will be set to exhaust so that hot air can escape through the top of the case. Now, not changing the fan orientation is not the end of the world, as the PC will still function just fine. But if you're trying to get maximum air movement and get the most cooling you possibly can, then it might be wise to go ahead and flip the fans. It doesn't take that long. Now let's move forward to the very first hardware deal that I was able to find for today's build. I was able to pick up this MSI Tomahawk B550 mag board that came with a Ryzen 7 3700X and 32 gigs of Gskill 3600 megahertz RAM, and I was able to find this combo for only $240 on Facebook Marketplace. Now, coming across combo deals is a pretty regular occurrence in my part of town, and I prefer to look for used boards that come with a CPU, as you already know that that processor is compatible with the board, assuming that it was pulled out of a functional system. Now, my items came in looking pretty good with just a small amount of dust on it, so I only had to dust it off a little bit with my air duster, but right now is when I would deep clean the board if it was needed, because you want to make sure that the computer that you're selling is extremely clean. Nobody's gonna pay $1,100 for a dirty computer. Now let's talk about cooling for a second, because I cannot be the only person who thinks that a stock CPU cooler is just so incredibly boring. For like $20, you can find a tower cooler that is not only going to help with the performance of your system, but it is also going to give your computer a way better look. I mean, really think about it. Your CPU socket is pretty much located smack dab in the center of your build, so why wouldn't you want that area to look way more badass? Now, just because you can buy a tower cooler for $20, you can also buy much more expensive coolers, which is kind of the direction that we went for today's build. So what we're using today is the AK620 Digital by Deepcool. Now they do offer a few different versions of this cooler, but I went with this one as it is very large and it will definitely help capture more attention when we list this PC, as it does also have a temperature display built into the unit for a little extra pizzazz. Now you do want to make sure that you double check that whatever cooler you are going to go with, it is the correct size for your case and that it will connect properly to the CPU socket type of the motherboard you're using. So now seems like a good time to talk about one of the two items that I always prefer to have brand new when it comes to any build that I'm working on, and that first item is the storage for our system. There is absolutely no reason to why you shouldn't have your computers running off of an SSD, even if the bulk majority of the storage for your computer is running off of a 3.5-inch spinning drive. An SSD is going to boost the speed of your system, and it's just going to make the user experience so much better. Now, you can find pretty low volume SSDs for an extremely cheap amount of money. Now, depending on the age of the motherboard that you are using for your build, you may not have the ability to add an M.2 storage drive to your system, in which case you would use a SATA SSD, and they are both pretty much the exact same price these days. Now, for our system today, we will be using this 1 terabyte M.2 drive so that our system operates quickly and it has enough storage so that whoever does buy this system doesn't need to run out and buy more storage anytime soon. Now, I am not saying that you should always avoid buying used SSDs, but somebody else's history is on that storage drive, even if you have wiped it clean. So just for peace of mind, I like to have a brand new drive. So now that our storage drive is installed on our motherboard and that board is now safely installed in its brand new home, let's talk about the second thing that I prefer to buy brand new, which is the power supply. Now, it should go without saying that the power supply is an extremely important piece of hardware, as it does supply power to the whole system. Now, there are horror stories out there of like power supplies catching fire or completely frying every single piece of hardware inside of your build. So unless the deal that I'm trying to get for a power supply is for a unit that has been completely tested, then I'm usually just gonna try and go ahead and buy a brand new power supply so that I have a little bit more peace of mind. And because the PC that we're building today is going to be a power-hungry little monster, I went ahead and picked up an 850 watt power supply from Gskill. Honestly, until like a week ago, didn't even know Gskill made power supplies. But this is a fully modular 80+ gold rated power supply, so we can take a little bit more comfort in knowing that we are selling a system with a brand new power shooter and the buyer shouldn't run into any issues down the road. And now, for the item that gets everyone's heart pumping, the lifeblood of any good gaming PC, the piece of hardware that you stand next to your buddies so that you can see whose is bigger. The graphics card. Now for our build here today, I found an absolutely amazing deal on a 16 gig monster GPU for the low price of $240. And that card is the RX 6800. This is an excellent 1440p card that is actually outpacing the popular 7700 XT and falls just short of the performance of the very popular NVIDIA 4070. So to score this GPU for only $240, I'd say it is one heck of a deal. Oh, and I recorded myself going to pick it up.
Right now seems like a good time to tell you that if you're gonna be buying used parts off Facebook Marketplace, make sure you leave in a public location. Safety first, always. Now, I always carry protection with me, but that doesn't mean you have to, but just be sure that you are in a location where there's a lot of people, just to safeguard yourself. Safety always. We got her, boys. It's time to go home.
And the last thing that we will be adding into our PC are some cable extensions. Now, cable extensions are completely optional. You do not need to add them in, but I always prefer to put them in my builds as it creates a much cleaner end result. Now, if you are building your system with a specific color design in mind, it's definitely a good idea to use cable extensions as you can find them in pretty much any color combination you can imagine, and it definitely will help your PC stand out. And after 30 minutes or so of you doing your very best to try and organize all of the cables in the back of the case, our build is done. And I gotta say, it looks like it's worth $1,100 to me. Now, just because we finished building the system, that does not at all mean that we are done. We still need to install a fresh copy of Windows onto our system here, and we need to make sure that that copy of Windows is activated. Now, it is not difficult at all to copy a Windows image file to a USB flash drive, plug it into your new system, boot from that flash drive to install Windows onto your computer. But you will need to go to one of the 100 different companies that sell product keys so that you can activate Windows for the person who is going to be buying your PC. Now, me personally, I use productkeys.com as a Windows 10 key only costs $10. And even if you have a system that has the ability to run Windows 11, still buy the Windows 10 key. And the reason that you do that is because it's cheaper than the Windows 11 key. And you can just install Windows 10 onto your system and then wait for Windows to automatically prompt you that Windows 11 is ready to download, because Windows 11 is free if you own Windows 10. But now the fun really begins. Benchmarking and gameplay testing our brand new system to see if it performs as good as we hope. Now, for me, I keep all of my benchmarking software as well as a whole bunch of games on an external SSD so that I can just plug it into whatever system I am working on and immediately go into testing without having to download it every single time for every single computer. But software like TimeSpy and Cinebench are great resources, as well as Firmark and Prime 95. I will usually run Firmark and Prime 95 at the same time so that I can test the power supply to make sure that our system has adequate power. And you want to play a few games on the system so that when you go to list your PC, you can say what kind of frames the system can be expected to get in some popular games. You want to make sure that you play some very popular titles as well as some AAA games that really push a system to its limits. But make sure to play the type of game that the hardware that you're using will be able to perform well at. Now, for this system that we built today, we can play any game that you want. So games like Hogwarts Legacy, God of War, Helldivers are all well within this PC's capabilities, so I made sure to see what average frames looked like in those titles. But for builds that are not quite as powerful, games like Fortnite, Valorant, Overwatch, Call of Duty, those are all great benchmarking options, as the large majority of people looking for a PC will most likely play those games, and showing how well the system performs goes a long way in selling a system. So now our build is fully tested and it is ready to get listed for sale. Now, I usually use Facebook Marketplace to sell the vast majority of my PCs, but you can go ahead and use places like eBay or Jawa to sell your computers as well. I just don't do that because I do not like the hassle of dealing with shipping, so I just sell my computers locally. But I did want to show you an example of the listing for this PC. We have clear pictures showcasing how good the PC looks from multiple angles, and we have a video showcasing the PC running in a well-lit environment. Sometimes I will also attach a monitor to the computer and I will also show some gameplay in that video. It's really up to you on what you want to do. I don't do that as much anymore as I've sold a lot of computers, and having a good buyer rating makes it so that I don't really need to do that. I'm more trusted as I have sold well over 100 PCs at this point. For the description, I made a small statement about the PC, and then I listed every piece of hardware that is inside of our computer, followed by the average FPS in the games that we tested. Then we have another small closing statement about the system, and at the end I state my preferred method of payment, and I add on that I don't want any trades. You don't need to add that into the end of your listing, but just understand that if you don't do that, you have a much higher chance of having somebody trying to trade you their Xbox and Oculus for your PC. And always at the end, thank them for stopping by your listing. You still need to be polite, you're trying to run a business. And that's it. You have built, tested, and listed your very first gaming PC. Go ahead, run to the kitchen and grab yourself a candy bar, and give yourself a nice pat on the back. Now, do not be scared if your PC does not sell immediately, especially if you're building computers at this price point. It may take a few weeks to lock down a buyer for that PC. I've held on to some PCs for over a month before they finally did sell, but they all did in fact sell. And if you think you need more tips, go ahead and click the card up above to watch that video where I teach you how to list your items properly to maximize the amount of money you can make. But one small piece of advice that I will give you now is if you feel like you may have overvalued the PC that you built and you want to lower that price a little bit to maybe capture more attention, do not use their automatic price reduction tool. When you do that, it will gray out your original price and put a line through it, and then next to it will be your brand new price. When I see that, all I see is that they can't find a buyer and they're in a hurry to sell that computer. So I will always negotiate hard with that individual. If you want to lower the price, go ahead and go to your listing, copy your description, delete the listing, and then repost and then paste your description back in, and then make a brand new listing for your PC again with the updated pricing. That way there won't be a line through it showing everybody that you can't get a buyer. You can thank me later. And I'm sure that there will be somebody in the comments that says that I could have built this exact same system for a lot less money, and you're right. I know that I could have bought a cheaper CPU cooler, I could have bought a cheaper case, but I didn't, and I didn't for good reason. I think that this looks way better than if I would have gotten a $20 CPU cooler. And come on, if you're building a whole lot of PCs, don't you want the PCs to look different every time and like way more fun? Hey, and do me a little favor, if you had as much fun with me as I had with you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as smash that like button. It does help my channel out tremendously. I do a PC build pretty much every single week and they usually look pretty darn good. So if you like builds, you're gonna love it here. Oh, and I miss you if you don't come back and see me. Now, no PC build video of mine would ever be complete without a beauty montage, so I am gonna throw one of those at you. But before I do that, I did wanna say that no matter where you are in the world, I hope that you are having the most fantastic day, and I'm gonna see you right here for the next video.